I have a slightly different structure that I'm going to be trying out today. Basically what I have done is, and I hope this structure works because I put a whole like 15 minutes into doing this, but what I have done is I have this right here, this mushroom mug, and I have cut up little pieces of paper that have my TBR on them, and the ones in purple ink. Oh good, perfect, 2 of them. The ones in purple ink are my TBR, and the ones in this yellowy orange ink are books that I am in the middle of and haven't finished, and put them down either last year sometime or maybe earlier this year, but at some point, the point is I've read some of them already and then stopped reading them for various reasons and haven't picked them up again. So the idea here is that I'm going to pull 4 from the mug, and I'm going to pick 2 out of those 4 to read this week. I'm hoping I follow through. I'm currently in the middle of Act Your Age, Eve Brown, which I didn't include in the mug because I'm actively listening to it. I would call that the book I'm reading right now. And then I also didn't include my reread of The Mortal Instruments. As you can see, I'm on City of Glass. I haven't started it, but I imagine I will at some point, and I haven't included that because I'm like, I don't necessarily need to read it, if that makes sense. Like, I want to read it, but I don't, like, I know what happens. I'm not like itching to read it, and then also I'm not like pressuring myself to read it. Like, it's not part of my TBR, you know? I put down House of the Beast a couple days ago and haven't picked it up since, maybe a week ago, and I didn't put that in there because I assumed I would pick it up sooner. Maybe I should put it in there. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. We'll see how this goes. So let's get picking. I don't like that. I don't like that I said that. Okay, first book is, oh Jesus, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Yay! If I end up choosing Great Expectations I'm gonna pick 4, and if I end up choosing Great Expectations, I think I might not pick another book with that. And then the next book is She Is a Haunting, which I have been in the middle of for several months now. All right, book number 3 is, what does that say? Murder in Highbury. Okay, interesting. That's a contender. And then the last book, does that say Persuasion? Jesus, they really want me to read a classic this week. Oh my god. Ah! I don't know. Okay, I'm thinking, should we just go really Jane Austen this week? Okay, I think definitely Murder in Highbury is one of the ones we're gonna read this week. That is it's inspired by Jane Austen's Emma, which I recently read for the second time, and it takes place after the events of the book, and it's like a cozy little murder mystery. Someone in the town of Highbury is dead, and Emma is sort of trying to figure out who done it, essentially. So it's a Jane Austen whodunit, starring Emma Woodhouse. Actually, Emma Knightley is her name, because she's married already. Spoilers, by the way. Wow. For a 200-year-old book. Oh god. Okay, next, we could go the Jane Austen route and just read Murder in Highbury and Persuasion, but that might also be a bit much. Great Expectations, though, is a really thick book. And the thing is, I'm not sure I'm in the mood for She Is a Haunting. I think if I choose Great Expectations, we shouldn't have great expectations. I think I'm gonna do it though. I think I'm gonna choose Great Expectations. Okay, so I will put these two back in the mug. Isn't this mug so cute? He's a little mushroom. So these are our two books. We have Murder in Highbury, which I have on the Kindle, and I had started a little while ago, and then I kept trying to read it like in bed as I was going to sleep, and that obviously wasn't very productive because I kept falling asleep. And then we also have Great Expectations, which no one should expect me to finish in this video. I might not even like it. I've never read Charles Dickens before. But those are our two books. I probably will still listen to Act Your Age, Eve Brown. And if I need a break from either of these two books, I'll probably start City of Glass. But the focus will be on those two. I hope I can do it. All right, let's get started. With a couple reading updates for you. I have made, I've made a little bit of progress in both books. I was at, according to my Kindle, 31% of Murder in Highbury when I stopped reading it, and I am at, I think, 54% now. So, a little bit of progress in that, a little bit of progress in Great Expectations. But I'll talk about Murder in Highbury first. It is getting better, definitely. It might have just been because I was so sleepy trying to read it before, that now that I'm reading it while I'm like not actively trying to get to sleep, that it might be a little bit more interesting. But essentially the premise is one of the characters whom we know from the novel Emma, my favorite Jane Austen, has died. And Emma comes across the body and proceeds to investigate for herself what has happened to this dead person, because it is a murder. Their head was bashed in. So there is right now, so George Knightley is the magistrate, right? And there's a constable involved and a coroner. And the constable and the coroner suspect one person who, if you know the story of Emma at all, you would never suspect to be guilty of a murder. And Emma, of course, is like, this is ridiculous. Why would this person murder anyone, much less the person who was murdered? I'm trying not to spoil anything, can you tell? And Mr. Knightley is like, I would love to support you, Emma, but I am the magistrate. Like, I need to be unbiased about this. But also at the same time, he's like, this is ridiculous. This person would never murder anyone, much less the person who was murdered. So he is doing his best to conduct a thorough investigation. And the constable and the coroner are doing their best to arrest the person they suspect. And Harriet and Robert Martin are having marital issues as well, which is kind of just thrown in there randomly. I'm not sure if that's related to the plot at all. That is also something that is happening. So it is very interesting. I'm liking it a lot. I think, you know, it's difficult to write like Jane Austen when you're writing from a contemporary sort of schooling, I guess, or way of thinking. So like it's trying to mimic like Jane Austen's style of writing and kind of doing it, which is a little bit annoying, I'm not gonna lie, because like the sentence structure is modern but the words are antiquated, and so it's very they don't blend together well. But other than that, I mean, the tone is coming across and I'm like getting it. It's just I wish it maybe could have mimicked Jane Austen a little better, or maybe didn't try at all. I'm not sure. But the way it's written right now is a little bit, I don't know. Can you not? He's like licking himself. That's nasty. The way it's written right now is just a little wanting, I guess. But I am enjoying learning about, you know, the customs of the period of time in which Jane Austen was writing, so like early 1800s. I'm not sure what that era is called. Is that Regency? I don't think that's Regency. It's something. But I am enjoying learning about the customs. Apparently women didn't go to funerals back then. Except for like the country women, but like elegant, genteel women didn't go to funerals. I didn't know that. So that's an interesting tidbit. There is more like historical context in this book than there are in Jane Austen's novels, because of course Jane Austen was writing at a time when this was all seen as like normal and contemporary and nothing of note, whereas modern writers and readers are like, isn't this so interesting? And so they include it, whereas Jane Austen wouldn't have probably thought to include that if she ever had a funeral in her books, which I'm not sure she does. It has been very interesting. The one thing is, Emma keeps referring, this takes place after the events of Emma, and so Emma keeps referring to her husband by his Christian name, and I'm like, she specifically said in the books that she was never gonna do that. Everything else is so like consistent with the actual novel Emma that this one thing is like bugging me. I'm like, grr. It's not that big. I'm being very dramatic about it. It's not that big a deal. But I am enjoying Murder in Highbury. I think I would probably read the other books in this sort of series. I think it's like an interconnected standalone series of like Jane Austen themed murders, or maybe just Emma themed murders. I don't know. But I am having a fun time. Not because the book is like anything to write home about, but just because I love Emma so much. So that's Murder in Highbury. And then I am on page 96 out of 468 of Great Expectations. Not very far in, as you can see. I have yet to figure out what the plot of this book is. I think it's just Pip's life. I think it's just about Pip's life, because the blurb on the back, half of this has already happened and there's so much book left. So I think it's just, you know, Pip, I think it's like a coming of age. They mentioned in the beginning, I didn't read the whole beginning essay, but they did mention that it was a sort of Bildungsroman, which is, I believe, a coming of age novel in which the protagonist reaches adulthood. Starts as a child and reaches adulthood, as opposed to an Erlungsroman, I think, where the protagonist stays an adolescent. I did a project on YA literature last semester, and I learned those words. I refer to them as B&E, breaking and entering. Say hello. Poke your little nose up and say hello. Say hello. Look, we matched today. But yeah, there's a little dog down here. I believe a Bildungsroman. I don't know. I'm not German. Well, I am, but I don't speak German. Bildungsroman is a story where it has to be a story where the protagonist reaches adulthood, because Pip becomes an adult in this story, I believe. But it's going well so far. I'm highlighting intermittently. I think I've highlighted maybe 4 things so far. I'm not that great of an annotator. I'm not very good at it. I would like to be, but I am not. I just don't have thoughts while I read. I mean, it's not going poorly. It's a lot easier to read than I was expecting it to be. You know, people talk about Charles Dickens and like his rambly sentences and all the words he uses, but I honestly expected it to be much harder to get through than it is proving to be. I mean, it's still like antiquated language, but there are like footnotes at the bottom, like maybe one every, there's not a lot of footnotes, but it is helpful to have them every so often when there's something that I really don't know what they're saying. But you know, it's not as difficult to read as I was expecting. I was expecting like I think because I've been reading so many academic papers recently that I've been like, ugh, this is gonna be a slog. But it's just like a little antiquated language, and it's, you know, more, it's meant to be read by everyone. And so the language is like a little antiquated, but it's still easier to understand than some of the papers I've been reading for school. And I think the contrast between like densely worded and phrased and just terrible to read academic articles versus Charles Dickens, I would say Charles Dickens is easier. I mean, I'm enjoying it so far. I guess the plot is just watching Pip grow up. I like that his name is Pip. That's so fun. Pip. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just him living his life, which is fine. It's like he's like 12 in the book right now, or maybe 8. I don't know. They were like, he said at one point, he was like, at this point I was old enough to start my apprenticeship. And I'm like, well, I don't know how old that is. It's been 200 years. We don't do apprenticeships anymore. Well, I guess we do internships. Still, not the same age anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I don't know how old Pip is right now. He's between 8 and 12, if I had to guess, which is a vast difference. If you've met any 8-year-olds and then any 12-year-olds, crazy difference. Or if you've been 8 or 12, you would know. I'm curious to see how some things are laid out, because I'm curious to see who that guy in the pub was. I think that's all I have to say. I think I'm going to continue reading now and take you along with me. So let's get to it. Beef stew last night, and I have so many leftovers, so we're having some of that. And in true peasant mode, we have some bread as well, bread and butter on the side. And then I have my Kindle propped up here, so we're gonna have a nice cozy little dinner. We're gonna read some Murder in Highbury, and we're gonna have a good time. We are back. I finished Murder in Highbury last night, and I have to say, Emma did not do much. Like, she figured out who the murderer was, and it wasn't like unsurprising. And I did like the last maybe 40 pages because there was like a confrontation, and it was very dramatic. But I have to say, not a lot happened, and it wasn't as fun to read about nothing happening in Murder in Highbury as it is to read about nothing happening in like Emma, because at least in Emma, like characters are growing and developing, whereas in Murder in Highbury it just sort of felt like the author needed to throw some murder suspects in there to like get you off her trail. I don't know. I didn't love it as much as I kind of wanted to love it. I did love it in the sense that it was like a continuation of Emma, and it was all these characters that, you know, you grew to know and love in Jane Austen's Emma. I did appreciate reading about them more, especially because I did just reread Emma back in January. And then, I don't know if this will be like continued in the next book, but there was one plot point that was just kind of left there. Like, I don't remember a resolution. Maybe I like skimmed over it. I don't know. I was kind of skimming some of it. I'm not gonna lie. but maybe I missed it, but I don't remember that plot point getting resolved at all, and I don't know why. So that was kind of annoying. I did like the reason behind the murder. I thought that was in character, let's say. I like Emma and I like Mr. Knightley, and I like them together, like, as a relationship. I think there were some liberties taken, as there kind of has to be, but I didn't hate it. It was just not as exciting as I was maybe hoping for. I think that's what it was, is I was hoping for a little more action, and then, I don't know why, it's an Emma adaptation, like, there shouldn't be that much action, technically. I don't know why. I guess because, you know, it's a murder mystery. And I had just read Murder on the Orient Express, too. So I was like, yeah, stuff's gonna happen. Emma's not a detective. So I think I was expecting a little more sleuthing to be done by Emma that wasn't done. And I was like, actually, this kind of makes sense because, you know, society, and also Emma's not a detective. And also, like, there's not a lot of detective work to be done that I would, you know, expect as a 21st century reader reading about the early 1800s. Like, there's not much they can do, and there's not much Emma can do on her own to investigate a crime. So in that sense, I guess it makes sense that not a lot of sleuthing got done, but that was just my sort of expectations going into the book that weren't met, and I think that's why I was more disappointed in it than maybe someone else would be if they went into it with different expectations. It wasn't a bad book. I'm thinking like 3.75, which is above average. I don't tend to rate books below 3 stars because if I don't like it that much, I simply will stop reading it. I am not a hate reader, mostly because I don't want to spend my time hate reading something because I simply don't care enough to do that. But yeah, so I finished Murder in Highbury, and it was good. Wasn't great, wasn't bad. It was good. I do have a lot of homework today because I put off some things over the weekend that maybe I shouldn't have. And so now I have more homework to do. So I'm going to take you with me to do that, to motivate myself. But yeah, so I've got a lot of stuff that I need to get done. I'm working on a zine right now for one of my classes, and I should be way further along in that than I actually am. So, and I've got to read like a lot. Like a lot. So I'm going to take you with me while I do that. And at this point, I'm more procrastinating than anything else. I really don't want to, but yeah, let's get to it. I'll read some more too. I'll read more Great Expectations and everything, but like I really got to focus on the homework. So I guess one of the books for the video is The Devotion of Suspect X, because I've got to read like half of that before Thursday. It's Tuesday. So yay. All right, come on. gave up on homework like an hour ago. And then I took the dog out and we hung out with some other neighborhood dogs for a while, which is progress because he used to bark at them all day and not go near them. And then he went up and sniffed her butt. So I think progress is being made in terms of the dog department. Also in terms of the dog department, I got a job that's also dogs all day. So we're doing great. Great Expectations. Side note, the way I would kill someone to see Dylan Mulvaney as Anne Boleyn in 6 on Broadway, not even funny. Not even funny. I've been watching her Instagram stories obsessively. They are my Olympics. Anyway, that's where I'm at with all of this. Let's get some Great Expectations going. This is so funny because Miss Havisham gave Joe and Pip like some money, and Joe goes back to his wife and she goes, "How much is it?" And he goes, "What would you say if I told you it was 10 pounds?" And she'd be like, "That'd be great." And he goes, "Well, it's more than 10 pounds. You fucking dick. Anyway, I just wanted to update you on how it's going. I'm going to read you all this quote because it amuses me. This is from Pip's perspective, and he goes, "And to make it worse, they all asked me from time to time, in short, whenever they had nothing else to do, why didn't I enjoy myself? And what could I possibly do then but say that I was enjoying myself, when I wasn't?" Mood. Me too, Pip. Me too. Chicago! We are back with another reading update for you all. I believe this will be the last one of the video, so bear with me. I did not finish Great Expectations in this video. I will finish it on my own time, but I wanted to pop on and tell y'all what my thoughts were so far, and then I'll probably do a reading wrap up for the month, and hopefully I'll have it finished by then, and then you can know what the rest of my thoughts were on the book. But let me see, I am on page 284 of Great Expectations, so I'm 2/3 of the way done. You know, not knowing much about Charles Dickens and his life, or much about England during the 1800s, I have to say I found it a lot easier to read than I was expecting, and I'm connecting with the characters a lot more than I was expecting to. I think I've already made the joke that I didn't have any expectations about Great Expectations, but I can see why it's so popular and why Dickens's writing has lasted for so long, because it is actually quite accessible. And the version I have, I think I've told you this already, but the version I have has footnotes. Hang on, yeah. It's got footnotes. This is a Barnes & Noble classic. I don't know if they still make these. I got this off of Thrift Books, so I don't know if they still make classics like this with the footnotes in it, but yeah, this was published in 2003, so maybe not. But it is incredibly helpful to have those footnotes because some things are just like, what's happening here? But for the most part, aside from like dated references that, you know, are not too hard to understand if you have like a vague idea of England during the time period, or even like England during from like 1500 to 1890. Like, I'm reading words that I'm like, oh, I know what this is because I read a lot of Shakespeare. There's also so many Shakespeare references in this book, which I have been enjoying immensely. And I have to say, my favorite character so far is definitely Biddy. That girl deserves the world. I'm emotional. And of course, Joe is fantastic. Love him. And Pip, like, I understand what Charles Dickens was like getting at when he wrote Pip as a character. Like, I understand really like the point of the book much easier than I was expecting to. Like, when I read Jane Austen, I don't always pick up on like the satire of her work. Like me, I'm just like giggling and kicking my feet. I'm like, oh, look at this little romance. But this one, I'm definitely picking up that it's like eat the rich, kind of. Maybe not that extreme, but it's like the disillusionment of having a lot of money, I think, is possibly what this book is about. Maybe. I hesitate to say anything because I don't want to be wrong and look stupid, but you know what? Fuck it. I think this book is about the disillusionment of being rich. Or I just said something that's like totally obvious and everyone's like, yeah, no shit. Either way, I figured it out by myself. But I am really enjoying it so far. The writing is easy to read. It's funny. I've been highlighting like a little bit. There's like 2 highlights. One right here and one right there. That's more than I've been highlighting, honestly. I highlight like once every few chapters probably. Because I'm not really a very good annotator. But I should be as an English major. I should be like fantastic at annotating, but I'm really not. I've only been an English major for like 1.5 semesters, so what can you do? But, okay, yeah, see? Written in the last decade of his life, Great Expectation reveals Dickens's dark attitudes toward Victorian society, its inherent class structure, and its materialism. I was right. Eat the rich. I really like it. I think, you know, Pip is such an interesting character because I think he's so young at the beginning, and then of course he meets Estella and he gets like self-conscious, and you know, I feel like the whole plot of the book is just Pip being self-conscious about his like humble beginnings and trying to like compensate for that. And I think honestly his benefactor did him a disservice. And Estella fucking did him a disservice. Not to hate on a woman, but maybe she gets better. I don't know. I did see a spoiler about Biddy when I tried to look up how old Pip was. Because it never tells you. It's just like, when I came of age to be an apprentice. And I'm like, how old was that? Were you 8? Were you 12? I don't know. I do know when he does come of age to like receive his inheritance, he's 21? I think. I'm going to assume he's 21. Is that the man himself? Charles Dickens? Anyway. What a beard. Jesus, look at that. Hello. I guess that should have been British. I am really enjoying this book. It isn't taking me much longer to read than like a contemporary novel, which I'm kind of shocked about. Because the language isn't really that antiquated, and the plot and the characters are so easy to like absorb yourself in and understand. I would say if you want to read a classic, this would not be a terrible one to start with, honestly. I mean, personally, I would recommend Jane Austen, but like if you're not into that, Great Expectations. It's not that hard to read. I'm really liking it so far. I think I will have probably a little bit more to say about it when I finish it. But for the most part, I want to know who Pip's benefactor is. I don't think it's Miss Havisham. You know, each character is so, like, vivid. Like, Dickens really put a lot of thought, I feel like, into each character. Because they each have their own, like, quirks and personality. There's something in this book that reminds me so starkly of the Mary Poppins movie. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if you read this book, and if you've read this book, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. It's great. It's, you know, it's engaging. It's easy to read-ish. I mean, I feel like probably contemporary books are easier to read, but like for a classic, it's easy to read. The cover also, I feel like, it's not a bad cover. But yeah, and then, as you can see, I saw Chicago the other night. It was really good. That is a dance-heavy show. I did not know that. This is also my first time seeing Chicago, so that was really fun. But I think that's all I have to say. I have a lot of schoolwork to do that I've kind of been putting off. So I'm gonna sign off and go do that. I will see y'all in the next one.